Well, howdy there, folks. James, politicalfriar.com, coming to you again. I got the Oregon hat on, and so we're going to talk about politics on this one. It's going to be about the National Defense Authorization Act that Congress passed last week and how much that's news. That's the whole bit of news. The news story is that the Congress passed the bill. Wow. Now, those of you who are following along with this particular Congress understand how dysfunctional it is and how the very far right wing of the Republican Party has held most legislation hostage by threatening the Speaker of the House. You had 6 Republicans totally torpedo the months of the Congress by threatening to remove the Speaker over and over, and actually succeeding in removing the Speaker. And so Speaker Johnson really has pulled off a bit of a coup in getting this bill passed and keeping his job, because those very same hard right Republicans were against this bill. They were against this bill because it was more important for them to fight a culture war over transgender policies and abortion policies than it was to fund the U.S. military. And they were using the military funding as a wedge to get their culture war issues addressed. And that sounds irresponsible, and it is. It sounds a little bit like their priorities are not quite right, and that's true too. And the huge majority of Congress agreed. Both Republicans and Democrats voted in a big majority for this bill. And Speaker Johnson defied the right wing to bring it to the floor and let that vote go through. And the vote went through not without some elements of what the right wing wants. For example, the bill explicitly bans drag show story hours on U.S. military bases, but it didn't have the ban on gender affirming care or on reimbursement for abortions that the hard right saw as absolute deal breakers. Without those things in the National Defense Authorization Act, a $863 billion bill that funds everything from stealth fighters to GI socks, you had to hold up the entire show for those two things. And Speaker Johnson said, no, you know what? It turns out I am at least mildly interested in governing, and therefore he overrode the right wing. So far, he's got away with it. We'll see. Maybe the legislative arsonists on the right will knock Speaker Johnson out of his job. It's not like the rules have changed such that it takes more than one of them to get a spur up their backside to decide that they don't want to have Johnson as the speaker anymore. And we know how tight those votes are. We went through weeks of drama. But for now, it appears that Speaker Johnson actually has a governing majority. Fascinating. Just fascinating. Next, we'll see whether that governing majority can be parlayed into probably the very last significant piece of legislation that this Congress will do. And yes, I realize they have a whole nother year, but really, this is it, because the election will come along, and these sorts of divisions that you have in the House are going to basically make any other legislation impossible next year, other than the necessary spending bills that will be subject to wonderful government shutdown drama, I have no doubt. But those bills won't be as interesting or controversial as the one big piece of legislation left, and that's the security assistance for Israel, Ukraine, and the southern border. These three issues have been tied together, and I'm not against it. All three of them need to be addressed. And if the Republicans and the Democrats can come to a negotiated solution and pass, $105 billion addressing all three issues, then all the better. It's not going to be a perfect bill. The right-wing Republicans will not vote for it. They won't vote for it for a number of reasons. Some of them are just anti-Ukraine. Some of them are fundamentally kind of pro-Putin in a weird way, or at least they just don't give a darn about it. But they're going to also object to the border security stuff. The Biden administration and the Republicans are going to negotiate, and they're going to come up with a compromise. And that compromise is going to, by its nature, be a compromise. And it's not going to be perfect, and the right-wing Republicans will toss it. Now, will Speaker Johnson survive that? I don't know. Anyway, It's just a thought. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Leave me a like, hit that subscribe button, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.